Hello again, it is Miss Waite with another geometry video for you. I hope you are doing well and that you had a nice weekend. Here we go. Today begins our formal exploration of geometry, y'all. Yay! Before we get started, I'd like you to grab a sheet of paper and just write what you know about the following terms: point, line, and plane. Anything that comes to mind about those three words: point, line, and plane. You can pause the video and write down what you know. All right. So hopefully you've written down a few things, and I'll bet you that you were able to write a little something about point and a little something about line. And for both of those, you had something that was sort of mathy. Like for point, you might have said something like a dot, or looks like a period at the end of a sentence. And for line, I bet you put something like a straight thing. And then for plane, though, you might not have had something to think of, or you might have thought of something that was kind of unmathy, like a vehicle that flies, something like that. Well, these three terms, point, line, and plane, are the three basic building blocks of geometry. They're called the undefined terms of geometry. And when you're thinking about the science of geometry, these are the three basic objects that we're going to deal with. And we're going to talk about what they are in just a bit, but I just kind of wanted to get your thinking going on that. So before we get going too much, as you know, we decided not to use Fuel K-12. There was a lot of issues with it. Those issues weren't getting solved. And so we have decided to not use it. What we're going to use instead is our actual geometry textbook that you would have gotten had you been sitting here in class. We've been using this textbook for years, and so, I'm familiar with it. And you might have actually done your algebra out of a Big Ideas Math book last year. Yeah, it's called Big Ideas Math, and there's an online assignment platform. So we're going to be doing assignments and turning them in on Big Ideas Math starting at the end of this week. And the nice thing about it is that when I assign things on Google Classroom, sometimes you need to print it and then figure out how to upload it back, or if you can't do that, how you're going to turn it in. And this Big Ideas Math platform makes it so that you can turn assignments in right on that platform. It's going to make it a lot easier for all of us. We're going to start using this platform by the end of the week, and we're going to be talking about it soon, but I just kind of wanted to get the idea in your head that we're going to be signing into a new thing and doing something new by the end of this week. So at this point, we're getting ready to do a little bit of geometry, and so it's time to get out your notebook. Pause the video at this point and write questions for your last set of notes, and then also go back to the previous set of notes and write a summary. This is what you're going to want to do at the beginning of every video. Just kind of update those notebooks, review the information that you've seen a couple of days before, and then get your page ready for today's notes. And I'm going to kind of stop going into detail about what that looks like because we've done it a couple times and now you've got the right idea. But if you still have questions, please let me know. I would also like for our videos to get a lot shorter. I'm sure you would too. And so not dealing with notes is not detailing what to do with notes is probably the best way to get these videos so they're not like a half an hour long every time. Okay, so here's your essential question for the day. What are some basic geometry words and their meanings? The topic, basic geometry vocabulary, should go at the top of your new note page and also in your table of contents. And then right under that, it should say where the essential question should be right underneath the topic on your note page. And then use, make those lines so that you have a column for questions and a place for a summary, and get ready to take some notes in that big part. Here we go. So the word geometry is something that we might want to think about what it means. We see the first part of that word, geo, in other words like geothermal, geopolitics, geophysical, geology, and, of course, geometry. The second part of that word, metry, is in words like symmetry, asymmetry, trigonometry, optometry, and of course, geometry. So think about these two lists. Decide what geo means and what metry means. You can pause to give that some thought. Now you're going to pick up your pencil and start writing about this in your notes. So when we look at this list that has the beginning part of the word geo, we have geothermal, which is a kind of power that's derived from the earth. We have geopolitics that are like global politics. We have geophysical, which is about the physical aspects of the planet. You have geology, which is studying the makeup of the planet, and of course you have geometry. And so geo seems to suggest something that has to do with the planet that you live on. And in fact, a simple way of saying that is that geo means global. Having to do with the world you live on, the sphere that is our home, the home of the entire human race, everyone you've ever known, anyone who will ever live of the human race lives right here on this rock. And geo is a way to say global. Now, metry comes from words like symmetry, which means of equal measure. Asymmetry means that it's not equal measure. We have trigonometry, which is another type of measurement. It's a mathematics of measurement. We have optometry, which is the measurement of the eyeball and taking care of your eyes. And then, of course, geometry. And so, metry seems to have something to do with measurement involved, and that is exactly the idea. So when we take those two parts together, geo and metry, what we have in its most basic form is geometry, which is global measurement. And that is essentially what the science of geometry does. It takes the world around you, breaks it down to into some shapes, studies the properties of those shapes so that you can better understand the world that you live in. So you're going to find a lot of words, and you probably have already noticed this in your math life, that are different in math than they are in the English language. And so we have to be really careful that we don't get confused. For example, the word point in English means to indicate the direction of something or the location of something. In math, that's the same thing, a location in space. And it's the most basic building block of geometry, a location in space. So when you talk about the word point in both the language of English and the language of math, it's pretty similar. But then we get to something like plane. In English, a plane is pretty much a vehicle that flies, but in math, it's very different. It's a flat surface that extends infinitely along its length and width. And when we say flat, it is absolutely contained by the second dimension. There is no height to a plane. Okay? So when we're talking about math words, we have to be very careful about how we think of them and not confuse them with English words that are very similar. So we're really to a point where it's time to give you an assignment. There isn't a lot to say about geometry vocabulary. Really, the thing to do is to look it up for yourself and take notes on it. And so that's your assignment. On Google Classroom, you're going to find a geometry glossary. And I'm going to ask you to use this glossary or any other source of info if you like. If you want to look these words up on the internet or search them on your phone, get a dictionary out, whatever seems to make sense to you. And I'm going to ask you to look up the following words: line segment, which can also just be called segment, endpoints, ray, intersection, collinear, coplanar, congruent, midpoint, and bisector. I'm going to ask you to complete your notes by writing these words and the definitions that you looked up on today's note page. Do your best to write those definitions in words that make sense to you. If you don't understand what the definition is, then it's really hard to understand what the object is. So try to interpret that in your own words. When you can, draw a picture of the word. Sometimes you will get, when you're looking up these words, a picture that goes along with it. Get that in your notes. It can be really helpful. And then when you get done with this, go to the Google Classroom page for this assignment and just click Turn In. That's really all you have to do. This is a note-taking exercise. So you're going to get these words and definitions in your notes, and then you're going to let me know you did that by clicking Turn In on Google Classroom. And that's it, friends. That was a quick one, huh? So our topic today was basic geometry vocabulary, and practice is, it says get some rest, and that's funny because that actually was from these slides before, but really your practice is to define geometry words in your notes. But I'm not against you getting some rest too. That's a great assignment. Also get some rest. And then let's revisit the essential question, what are some basic geometry words and their meanings? By the time you get those notes done, you should be able to answer that question. And if you can't, we should talk. All right. That's really all there was to it today. I hope you have a good one. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.